Hey, I'm Nick Filardi. I co-host with Jason Thielbar on the world's second finest podcast. Every week we talk about 90s Bat books, but we also talk comics, movies, books, TV, both new and old, that we love. What you're about to listen to is an unedited version of that conversation. This is the to-read pile. Jason, what have you been reading?
I've been reading quite a lot lately, actually. I had a couple that I thought I might bring to the to-read pile, but then this, goddamn, I love this man. I love everything about what this man's career and what he's done with it. But Brian K. Vaughan dropped a new book on his blog. On his fucking blog, it's actually the first 150 pages of this thing that he's working on that he dropped for free. Go to Exploding Giraffe or look up Brian K. Vaughan. But it's by Brian K. Vaughan and Nico Heinrichsen.
Oh, yeah. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his last name, but they did Pride of Baghdad together.
Yeah.
Which is a banger book.
Oh, it is very good. He does the that kind of like sort of hyper realistic style, but in such a perfect sort of way, you know, because it's not it's not quite, it's just I don't know how to describe it, but like we were talking about Baker Street, the Baker Street 4. I brought it to read, and I was saying that it's hyper realist to the point of it being distracting and like difficult to read in points. Yeah. And Nico does like such a great job of like putting in all the detail, but making it very readable. I haven't read what you're bringing, but I've read Pride of Baghdad and loved it. Yeah. So it's called Spectators, and the first 150. I'll just read from his blog post when he posted it. He posted it on April 24th, so this is still like, you know, pretty fresh, new. But it's been And he goes, "Hey, you trapped at work right now? Brian here. Wondering if you'd like to read 150 pages, longer than an entire volume of Saga, from an explicit sci-fi romance horror graphic novel called Spectators by artist co-creator Nico Henriken, letterer phonographics, and writer boy me. It's extremely not safe for work, but what do you care about safety?" And you can download it in PDF or CBZ, like
nice,
whatever it is. The first 100, and this is all full color. I as soon as I opened it up, I was hooked, because the first few pages, this really isn't going to be a spoiler, but man, the first pages just jump right the fuck in, and it is so goddamn brutal.
What is it? What is it about?
Ghosts, kind of.
Okay, I'm in. You sold me.
But it begins with our main character is this woman in her late 30s, early 40s, who she's in a movie theater waiting for her date, and it's just like the second date she's going on with this guy, and like, you know, she's young, has blonde hair and like a pink streak through it, like, you know, kind of trendy, and the date kind of flakes out, and you know, she's like, God, she's really pissed. And so she starts looking up porn on her phone in the movie theater and starts like, you know, starts going like, well, I mean, you know, movie hasn't started yet, and it's kind of a dark theater, so I'm gonna, and then all of a sudden there's these like loud noises, these loud booms, and some people start talking. They're like, what's going on? There's one guy like, no, that's gunshots. That's fucking gunshots, man. And then just this insane man with a gun just comes in the room and starts fucking murdering people, and just like brutal violence.
That's one of my greatest fears living in America.
That's like, yeah, I know. It hit me really hard when I first.
I can imagine.
I was like, Jesus Christ. I was like, oh my God. All right out the fucking gate, apparently. I don't. Because I didn't like, I'm almost sorry to have described any of this for anybody, because I went in blind. Actually, maybe even cut what I described, like of from the beginning, because I don't want to ruin that for people. But like, man, it's just so well done. It begins so harshly, and it's I don't know. It's just really affecting, because you'll see these people become ghosts and become kind of like used to sort of being ghosts, and people going like, well, does everyone stay ghosts? And they're like, no, you can move on to whatever if you want, but like, so like I don't know where it's going to like, go, or it's going to like lead, but it's just like,
sure,
man, it hits my sweet spot, which is weird sci-fi.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like that's why I immediately glommed onto, and it was a great book. I still have to finish it, but I immediately glommed onto Sex Criminals,
Yeah.
because it's just oh yeah, these people that can stop time when they orgasm. I'm like, fuck yeah. Fuck it. please give it to me. All of it, but yeah, it's just such a, it's so, the beginning of it, so audacious,
Yeah.
and like I said, the art, my God, the art. Oh, just everything. Like when I see beautiful art, but then also, and we talk about it all the time, just like beautiful comic book, like storytelling, just beautiful, like the craft of actually how you visually tell your story, like when that's like together, like my God, like it's so good. And just such a badass move of Brian K. Vaughan to be like, yeah, you know what, 150 pages,
there you go. Yeah.
right out there. Out there.
That is pretty great. New Friday chapter went up too, by the way. Just recently I saw from Brubaker.
Huge.
Check it out. Things digital.
Huge shout out to Panel Syndicate. I actually got it. This made me think that I'm gonna jump onto some Panel Syndicate books that I've been meaning to read.
Nice.
But yeah, man, Spectators, like, man, get on it. Like that, yeah, download it in PDF, download it in.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out. I think I gotta clear out some space on my iPad to download 150 pages of comics, but I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I'll get on it.
Oh,
and it's free, man.
Yeah.
No excuse.
And it's free. Like that's something that, like, and I know I've talked about it ad nauseum many times, but like I just always love it whenever anybody makes it to a certain level, and Brian K. Vaughan's made it to a pretty, he's one of those people that's like fine, because he's also like written for TV and like, he's
sure. Yeah. The comic book money is a pittance compared to the TV stuff he's doing.
Yeah. But he still very clearly absolutely loves comic books, absolutely loves it. And he wants people to love it as much as he does. And so he's just like, yeah, man, here, free comics, whatever. I'm rich enough. I don't, I want you people to read comic books, please. And I'm like, yes, please, people, read comic books.
Please, people, please. So I have kind of a weird to read pile. Like I had a weird to read pile last time because I was in the work epidemic. But firstly, I wanted to shout out, because it's Pride Month. It's the start of that at the time of this recording, and a friend of the show, Maddie, posted on League of Comic Geeks a long list, compiled a lot of DC comics made by people who are LGBTQ+. So if you want to check that out, it's going to be linked in the Discord. I also retweeted it today on my Twitter. So if you dig into the Twitter, you can find that link. Huge list of stuff, not only imprint collections, but current single issues, out of print collections, single issues, and inaccessible items for one reason or another, not accessible. Man, I'm hesitant to even run down this list because he was like so thorough with it. But there were some books that jumped out at me. A lot of Grant Morrison stuff on there. because Grant Morrison is they them. Animal Man Omnibus, Doom Patrol Omnibus, a lot of other good stuff. Invisibles, stuff like that.
The Filth.
Yes. All that stuff's really great. There's Batman by Grant Morrison as well. Like, we're in a Batman podcast. You should probably check that out if you haven't already.
Yeah.
Also, Young Animal stuff from Gerard Way. A lot of cool stuff. But there was one book in particular that I think is going to jump out at me that I'm going to check out. And then I was thinking, I was like, man, if I check out this book, then maybe I should just, for the month, just read a bunch of Pride stuff from like LGBTQ plus authors. Like, dive in, like, because this list is so comprehensive, and it's not like this list is, I mean, there is some LGBTQ stuff in here, but it's not all that kind of stuff. Like, Gotham Central is in here because Rucka, so it's so it's like, there's just great work from these amazing, talented, wonderful people. And one of them was Batman Huntress Cry for Blood, which is a Batman Huntress book that comes out actually within the time frame of the rest of our podcast, but it's drawn by Rick Burchett and it's written by Rucka. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna track that down. I was like, that book's got me with a bullet for sure.
Apparently then the only two people that can make you care about Huntress is Greg Rucka and Rick Burchett.
Well, so
they finally got you to care about Huntress.
Please care about Huntress successfully. Congratulations, we all care about Huntress now.
All it took was Greg Rucka and Rick Burchett. Like, that's the who knew.
I tweeted about this, or I didn't tweet about it. I put it in another Discord, and I was like, "Has anybody read this?" I saw it on this great LGBTQ list. Has anyone read it? Do they like it? And somebody was like, I actually read that a long time ago. I remember it being really great. And they were saying that they are an easy mark for Rucka Huntress and Rucka Renee Montoya. And I'm also a mark for Montoya when Rucka's writing her. So I'm like, man, maybe I do care about Huntress. Maybe I do.
Maybe you've been protesting too much and you've cared about Huntress this whole time.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna give Cry for Blood a shot. But you should definitely. I put the list in my Discord. I put it on my Twitter. You should definitely check out the list and check out some LGBTQ stuff for Pride Month.
Yeah. Is it mostly like DC stuff, or is it?
It's only DC stuff.
Oh, okay.
So there's no like the Authorities on there, Jack of Fables, Checkmate. What else is on here? Blue Beetle Volume 6, House of Mystery Volume 2. House of Mystery Volume 1 from the reboot. What else is on here? Green Lantern Volume 2, The Day the Stars Fell by Grant Morrison. Goddess Mode by Zoe Quinn. What else is on here? Dreaming issues, Sandman Presents issues, New Talent Showcase stuff. All kinds of really good, really amazing books on this list. Check it out.
Yeah, because real quick, sure. I fucking knew it. I knew it was technically a DC book, at least when it was first published, because it was an imprint. It was an imprint. I still haven't read it, but it's been over 25 years, so I probably should. But have you ever heard of Stuck Rubber Baby?
No. What are you talking about?
Stuck Rubber Baby came out. I just looked up the Wikipedia because I knew it came out in the 90s. It came out in 95, and Stuck Rubber Baby is by the cartoonist Howard Cruz, and it was pretty much like all about his life and like how he like grew up in the South and very in 40s Alabama, and he's gay and figuring that out, and and all of that. and it was technically published by Piranha Press, but it was an imprint of DC Comics, where for a time they were using it for like their like alternative like.
I had no idea that
you know.
Piranha was an imprint of DC. I have a couple Piranha books by Sam Keith.
Yeah, Epicurious the Sage. Yeah, William Ensor. Yeah. Oh God, those books are so fucking good.
Those books are good. I haven't read them in a long time.
Freaking Hera. Is it Hera? When Hera shows up, but she's an anthropomorphic cow with breasts that are udders.
Yep.
I didn't know I needed that image in my life, but then when I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's how a god would be. That's how I would be if I was a god.
When I read that at like 16 or 17 years old, I was like, I don't think I should be reading this. I think that somebody should have stopped me.
Oh man, what a but Stuck Rubber Baby is. I also remember it being like, and when it came out too, it was like it was a huge thing. It was a pretty big thing in especially in the our little community of comic books, where like here is this like more at least more widely distributed, because it was through like it got to be in more, because I'm pretty sure the artist was like, I was just doing a cursory read of a Wikipedia, so like forgive me, but the artist was like also like he's like involved in like the underground scene of comics in like the 70s and stuff, so like it's not like his stuff like wasn't out there and he was just like some new like face, but
puncturing
like
the mainstream is an important thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah, and I was just actually just more than a little sort of nerd proud of myself to be like, well, technically, here's another DC book because it was an imprint, like
pushing your glasses up and everything.
Oh yeah, got to get those in, man. You got to get those in sometimes.
Okay, listen. So I worked a lot these past couple of weeks, and when I was working, I watched a fuck ton of Star Trek, Jason. Can I sell you on Star Trek?
I mean, sure, I'm already sold, but go ahead. What were we doing? TNG, Deep Space Nine?
Okay. So there's a certain kind of person that's going to turn off the pod at this point. And I just want to be like, hey, please just give me a second and let me talk about Star Trek and just like keep your mind open for just a minute. Okay.
Let me talk about our and your Lord and Savior, Star Trek.
No, because okay, Jason, this is the problem. This is the fucking problem. Because like people who love Star Trek love Star Trek,
Yeah.
And it becomes, they're so fanatical about it that like for years, for decades, I was like, I ain't going near that thing. I was like, that is a weird cult of nerds and weirdos. And then I didn't realize along the way I became a nerd and weirdo. And then I started watching Star Trek and I was like, this clicks with me. And I was like, oh no, the call's coming from inside the house. I'm mixing metaphors, Jason. But look, here's the point. Okay. Star Trek is actually really fucking great. And I feel like it's such a slow burn of a show that it takes a long time for you to like, it builds itself in your heart, like very, very slowly. And almost to the point where you don't notice how invested you get into Trek. And then by the time that you get there, it's like 6 seasons in and you're like, I love these characters. They're like, everything's gelling. The world is working so great. There's banger episodes. You're just like having a great time. And then like, before you know it, the show is over and you're like, wait, I need like 6 more seasons. So I had watched on my own Star Trek Next Gen for like, just chipped away at it. Really enjoyed it. First season is kind of rough, but it takes off after that. That's kind of a rich Trek tradition too, is like figuring out the characters on the page through the first season before continuing. I wouldn't fault anyone for skipping around on episodes. So I got booked for DS9 comic, Dogs of War. And that Deep Space Nine comic is out now. So I started watching DS9. I coincidentally started watching DS9 around then anyway, just because I'd finished Next Gen.
Mm.
I am now 6 seasons into DS9, and during my work binge, I also binged the new show Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks. Have you watched any of that?
I've watched a bit of Lower Decks. I have to go back. Lower Decks is really, really funny. Lower Decks is really, really good.
Lower Decks is fantastic. That I could tell because I'm Star Trek baby over here, that like there were jokes that they were making that I was like, this is a reference to something that I just don't know yet, or I haven't like steeped myself in the lore enough. So it was fine, but I really enjoyed it. Once it starts getting good, once Lower Decks doesn't know how much Rick and Morty to be and how much Star Trek to be at first. And once they figure out that balance, about halfway through season 1, a rich tradition, figuring it out on the page in season 1.
It's, you don't know until you go out there, man. Like,
yeah, exactly. So once they kind of figure that out and they balance and they get a good amount of Trek in there, it's like very, very fun. But if you start watching Lower Decks, you're going to be totally lost if that's like the first thing. However, Strange New Worlds, 1 season only is out. It's so visually rich and beautiful. It's such a beautiful show. And it's basically just an adventure show. Like they just go out there and explore. And you don't need to know anything. Like it's riffing a little bit on the original series, but like you don't I haven't watched the original series, and I guess it's a spin-off of Discovery. I haven't seen Discovery, but I watched Strange New Worlds. Fucking broke my brain. It was so good. It was so good. Follows Commander Pike. He's or Captain Pike. He knows when he's going to die from touching some time crystal or something. And so there's like
somehow.
Yeah, there's like a thread through the season of like him being like, well, if I know how I'm going to die, how can I save myself kind of thing. That pays off really well in the finale. All the characters are really fun. They pull from a lot of from the original series, which I haven't seen, but this is kind of like younger versions of original series members. Like Uhura's in there. The doctor is the same doctor on not Bones, but a different doctor is on the same on the original show. In this vein, I got to an episode of DS9 while I was binging where they accidentally went back in time and tried to like intermingle on the original Enterprise with Kirk and Spock. It was the Tribbles episode, which is like kind of famous in pop culture. Like if you're not into Trek, like you'd probably know the Tribbles episode just from Futurama and like
Trouble with Tribbles. Yeah.
So Jason, the episode looked so good. I think they had the original sets, shot it with the original cameras, because they integrated all of these. And this is the 90s that DS9 came out. Like maybe early 2000s. Not great tech as far as CGI and all that stuff. It is gorgeous and like expertly interwoven. There's like, so you have like Captain Sisko and Jadzia Dax like in the background of like Kirk and Spock having a conversation in the foreground in the original episode, and they just like drop them in there, and I'm just like, man, this is so fucking good. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, we had at the time Marvel Comics was doing big into shared universe at this time in the 90s. Like you'd see Thor flying in the background of an Ant-Man book or whatever, because it was shared universe. Like we're gonna make it all feel lived in. The world is rich and big. But like as far as television goes, there wasn't a whole lot of crossovers. And this crossover was not only so well executed, so fan servicey, but so fun. Even if you haven't seen the original episode, I was just like, they knocked it out of the park, man. Like it's just fucking good. And like new Trek is good, old Trek is good. This is what I'm saying. there's been a lot of missteps with the franchise in places. Like I hear the Enterprise television show is not that great. I hear the first couple of seasons of Picard and Discovery are not that great, or at least different than what Trek fans wanted.
Yeah.
Get into Strange New Worlds. Paramount actually put it up for free on YouTube, so you can just go watch it right now. You can turn this podcast off, go watch Strange New Worlds in full, the full first season on YouTube right now. So yeah, that's my pitch for Star Trek. I feel like for a long time, I actively avoided all of it because Klingons were weirdos at comic conventions, and I was like, I can't get mixed up in all that. But now that I started working on DS9 and I really started, I was like, oh, I enjoyed Next Gen, but maybe that's a one and done. Like it's got Picard, it's got Jean-Luc, who's the Patrick Stewart. And he's like a great actor. He just chews the scenery so well. I was like, maybe it's just a Patrick Stewart thing. And I'm like, not really into Trek. But then I was like 6 seasons into DS9. Then I'm like, fuck, man, I love Trek. It's real good.
And Deep Space Nine was always has always been my favorite Trek. I need to go back and watch it. I'll always love a captain being like, yeah, my crew members can do a little light terrorism as a treat.
Yeah.
It's all right. I'm okay with that. But
Cisco, really willing to bend the rules to fit like what they need. And to be fair, he's in a space station in deep space in front of a wormhole with a fucking army of Dominion behind it that could come out at any time. Like he's got to protect himself. He's got to be able to bend the rules a little bit.
Yeah, but I do love it's like I was talking about before with like episodic television and like, you know, and episodic comic books and the either little arcs or just single stories or something. Is that like that's something that I think that like especially Next Generation just sings with, you know, because like there'll be the, you know, you can, if you're watching like a bunch of them, there'll be a couple of episodes where you're like, oh, that was pretty good, and you'll like watch one, you'll be like, oh my god, you broke my heart, what the fuck, you know? Like, and it's just
man. And
sometimes too with Next Generation and well, you know, and Star Trek in general, I think people don't realize if they haven't watched it, like it can be really fucking funny, man. Like it can be, it's like they'll really go for some really good jokes, and like there'll be most full episodes sometimes will just be goofy episodes. They're just having fun in space, you know.
Oh man, I don't want to spoil stuff for anyone who hasn't, because I genuinely do want people to watch all this stuff. So I'm not going to get into anecdotally what I watched that was hilarious, and obviously Lower Decks like lampoons the whole thing, which is fantastic, but has its own wonderful Trek moments in it as well. But yeah, man. And, you know, I think it's also Trek in general, especially old Trek, is so optimistic about the future and the human race in general and like what we're capable of if we work together. And there's something just really beautiful about that, especially these days. Like, could just use a little bit of light in the darkness.
Yeah, because I, you know, it just made me think. I'm like, I sometimes want to say to any like, you know, like AI douchebag or whatever who's like, oh, it's like, you know what? Get back to me when you can. Put a little machine in front of me, and I get to say, computer, Earl Grey, hot, and a nice, perfect hot cup of Earl Grey tea comes out. Then I'll back your shit. All right. Then I'll think that this is like the future or something, because that,
Jason,
my God,
I often think about how
I do love Earl Grey. Earl Grey's great.
The replicators would crash every single fucking secondary market ever. Like the comics secondary market, the coin collecting secondary market, car parts secondary market, like every single secondary, like if I could just walk up to a machine and be like, Jack Kirby, the Demon, 1 through 16, and it just like appears, and I'm like, oh, okay, and then I just read it and throw it away. Because like,
Yeah.
who cares?
Yeah. The de-replicator or whatever it is we do to get rid of it will take care of it. I do remember reading something. I know I'm going to mess it up, but it was like some kind of quote where like how like the main complaint from Star Trek fans about like the J.J. Abrams movies was that they were too much like action movies, and someone was like, "Yeah, leave it up to a Star Trek fan who's like, what the hell is this excitement? I wanted boredom."
See, but this is part of like the reputation that Trek has, where I'm like, it's actually not like this with the new stuff that they're making. Like Strange New Worlds is like fun and exciting, like all the way through. It might have like a heady episode here and there, but it's like mostly an action show. But like in these guardrails of like optimism and hope and respect for each other and like, like all these kinds of things that is like common to Trek in general.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Can't get enough. Thinking about getting a Trek bomber jacket. Just letting my freak flag fly.
I used to actually watch a lot of Next Generation and Deep Space Nine like growing up because I mean I liked it anyway, but my fucking brother loved those shows.
What?
Yeah, just this big old.
Okay,
he contains multitudes. He contains multitudes.
The pod doesn't know who your brother is, but he's a huge dude. He single-handedly carried our football team like through high school. Like he is not.
He quit halfway through, but that's another.
Sure, he played well in a high school that is not known for playing well.
yeah, but he's like he's a mechanics. He's a man's man, kind of. He loves and knows how to fix things, build stuff. He's like, he's just
not somebody I would have been like, oh yeah, he loves Trek.
Oh yeah, he loves sci-fi. Actually, he's pretty he's pretty into sci-fi. He'll watch anything with lasers and aliens and shit. Like, he just like, I think he even watched Babylon 5 too. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, like, he would be deep into it.
You're shattering my image of him.
He contains multitudes, man.
Yeah, we all do. Yeah. So, I'm looking forward to finally finishing DS9 eventually. And then moving on to some Voyager, because there were some Janeway jokes in Lower Decks that I want to wrap my brain around.
Yeah, my friend, a good friend of mine, Eric, had told me we were talking Star Trek a while back, and someone always brings up Voyager of like Voyager was so hated or something, and he was like, "Nah, man," he's like he's like Voyager's great. He's like, "Fuck all that." So I'm like, yeah, maybe now. And I still haven't ever watched it. Maybe I'll watch Voyager. I'll finally
gotta jump in, man.
Yeah,
gotta jump in.
I should. In between the off days of the NBA finals, I think maybe I'll watch some Trek.
There you go. Sounds like a plan. Jason, where can people get in touch with you?
They can find me at 223. No, you can find me at King of Black Acid on Twitter and at World's Second Finest. That's World's Second with the 2. Still going to try to tweet a bit more. I haven't been as good at the 2 read stuff, but I want to keep the people updated.
Sure.
Updated.
And links for all this stuff are going to be in the show notes. You can find me at linktree.com/Nickfil. You can hop into my Discord. I'm in there all the time, even if I'm not streaming or tweeting or whatever. I'm sitting at the table talking about comic books with other fellow nerds and Trek stuff. Post some Trek memes.
Yeah, I mean,
if you're into that.
Yeah, Trek memes are good.
You can also catch me on youtube.com/Nickfil. I actually just posted a time lapse of a Black Adam Night Terrors cover for that Jeremy Hahn drew. Cool. I was really happy with the way it came out. Not only do you get to see the process in 9 minutes or however long it is, but I also did a full finished cover and then realized I had made a fundamental coloring mistake and then put it back on the drawing board and then fixed it. And you get to see all of that. So check that out at youtube.com/Nickfil.
Oh, man, that's great.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.